Hey everybody, it's Candace. Today I'm going to talk to you about the worst day of my life, which was 10 years ago today, October 16th, 2011. I will stop right here and add a trigger warning. I do talk a lot about suicide, I talk a lot about depression and mental health struggles, so if that's something that is a trigger to you, there's going to be a lot of that in here. 10 years ago today, October 16th, 2011, my best friend, Stephen Ray Roberts, he took his own life. He was 26 years old, and it was the worst day of my life. It changed my life. It's impacted my life every day since. So normally I make a big Facebook post kind of eulogizing him, remembering him, promoting suicide awareness and prevention, very important things, and talk about mental health and trying to break that stigma. And this year I'm going to do it a little bit differently. So I'm going to step out of my comfort zone. As you can tell, I'm a little nervous. I wrote about Stephen today, but I didn't post it on social media. I'm going to read it to you. And that way you can put a face with a name and you can hear my tone. You can't always read a tone. And it's just something different. And after 10 years, who wants to read the same Facebook post again and again? So let's get started. This is Stephen. Here. And here, this one up here, this is one of my favorites. I was teaching him how to dance, which by the way, I'm not very good at myself. So I was dancing in his front yard. I always felt comfortable around Stephen. I could always be myself. He was a very fun guy, as you can see. More than that, though, he was a very deep person. He struggled. He had a lot of internal, stuff going on, as a lot of us do. And he was the best listener, the best speaker. He was amazing. And I know when people die, they'll often suddenly be very, people only talk about the good things, right? But that's not Stephen. Stephen was good in life. He would have given anybody the shirt off of his back. He would do anything. He was the most selfless person that anyone ever could have met. And so that's a little about him. I will quickly answer all of your questions. I always get this question. Stephen was just my friend. We were never romantically involved. He was my very best friend. He was like a brother, but closer. We were both kind of broken and damaged and just drawn to each other and friendship, and he was just my very best friend for a very long time. Okay, so with all that out of the way, I will begin reading what I wrote. 10 years, who knew? Today is the 10-year anniversary of the worst day of my life. I was 25 years old, a single mother to two little girls. They were little at the time. And I was in a very abusive relationship, and I didn't have the best coping skills. My best friend took his own life, and he was gone in an instant. My biggest source of comfort, gone. The person I trusted the most in the whole world, gone. One of the few people in this world that I knew without a doubt, and to this day, I stand by this, he loved me unconditionally, despite my flaws and my brokenness. He was gone. How did this happen? What went wrong? Was it really that bad? Why did I have to act the way I did? That last question still burns to this day. I can answer a few of these questions. Stephen suffered with bipolar disorder. At the time, it wasn't treated. He tried to get help and was turned away because he couldn't afford health insurance. He made too much to qualify for Medi-Cal, and he didn't make enough to afford health insurance. And I think he made $2 over minimum wage, and he just couldn't get anything. He tried to get help, but he couldn't afford it. A few days before he passed away, he sought help from an emergency mental health facility here in Bakersfield. I won't name names, but he did, and he was turned away. He told them he was feeling suicidal. He told them he wanted to take his own life and that he needed help because he didn't want to do that, but he just felt like he had this urge, and they turned him away, and less than a week later, he was dead. Let's see. He told many of us that he was struggling. It wasn't a secret. He told me all about how he had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder when he was in Arizona. He was actually being treated for it there, and he felt a lot better. And then when he came back to California, again, he couldn't afford the health insurance or health. He couldn't go to a doctor. So about a month before he died, we had a conversation about how bad his depression was and that it was getting worse. And he wasn't sure that he could keep living. He actually talked about that. I told him that we'll figure this out. Please don't go. I need you. You're my best friend. I asked him not to leave. Me knowing, I asked him selfishly because I knew I couldn't handle it, but I also didn't want him to feel that way. Who would? During this conversation, Stephen asked me if I had ever heard the song Pieces by Sum 41. I had not, and I actually don't think I ever heard it until after he had passed away. The lyrics to the song haunt me to this day because he told me repeatedly during that conversation that I needed to listen to that song because that's how he was feeling, and that song, more than any other song, perfectly summed up what he was going through and what he was struggling with. And I wish I would have listened to it because it would have made more sense. Would it have changed anything if I had listened to it? I don't know. We'll never know. It probably wouldn't have if I'm being honest, but, we'll never know. So a small part of that song says, "This place is so empty. My thoughts are so tempting. I don't know how it got so bad. Sometimes it's so crazy that nothing can save me, but it's the only thing that I have." During the time that Stephen passed away, at that time, I was in an extremely toxic and abusive relationship. Not a lot of people knew. I was always viewed and always took on the persona of a strong, independent woman, and no man will ever mess with me. And I always questioned, how a woman or a man, could stay in an abusive relationship. Why don't you just leave? I was that person until I became the other person who ended up in that situation, and then it all made sense. As any person who's ever been in an abusive relationship knows, we tend to cut off our families and friends in an attempt to hide what's going on and also to protect the abuser, because in our heads we think they're going to change, and I think most people know the story. I was not immune to that behavior. I did the same thing. I cut off my family. I cut off my friends. Stephen, of all people, knew what was going on. He never liked him. He just didn't. So that put a wedge between us. And for the last few months of Stephen's life, we hardly talked at all. Whereas the 9 and 10 years prior, we usually lived together. Even when I was married, he lived with us. When I became a single mom, he lived with me and helped me with my kids. So this was very unusual, and my absence is part of what led to his depression, and that was a lot to deal with, and I'm okay now, but I still think about it. So other than that one conversation we had about a month before he passed away, we hadn't really been talking at all. And he thought I was mad at him. He thought I hated him. And that's not true. I was mad at myself, and I didn't like myself, and I didn't like what I was dealing with and putting up with. It was never him. On the morning of October 16th, 2011, I was in Morro Bay with a toxic boyfriend. My sister called me around 9:30 a.m. and she was just screaming, "He's dead, he's dead." Before she even said who it was, I started shaking. I was upset just knowing obviously somebody we were close to had passed away. I kept asking her who, and she couldn't get it out. It took a couple minutes for her to spit it out that it was Stephen. It was in that moment that I lost my mind. My heart was shattered. My soul was shattered. My life changed forever. It's never been the same, even 10 years later. The next 8 days was madness as I tried to navigate this new life and accept the reality that he was never coming back. He was gone. Thank God for an amazing support system that was there with me, to lay with me, because there was no picking me up. They took care of my kids. They spoon-fed me to make sure I got something. They just did everything in their power to help. So that's where I was. After that time, I ended up pulling myself together, but those first 8 days were rough. Suicide is not pretty. It's not a solution. It doesn't end the pain. It leaves the pain for other people. Chemical imbalances and trauma have a way of making our mind play tricks on us, and lying to ourselves makes us question our worth, which is just horrible. I'm here to tell you that your life matters. Your life has value. People love you and you are needed. It's been 10 long, short years, because it feels very long and it also feels like yesterday, without Steven. He is still very loved and very missed. I'm not lying when I say I think about him every day. His life always had value. He was never a burden to anybody. That was his brain playing tricks on him. He was loved and needed, and so are you. As for me, I'm doing okay. I'm married. I have 4 kids. I'm about as recovered as a person can get from such a huge traumatic event. However, a piece of my puzzle is missing, and it always will be. If you are a loved one or struggling with depression, please reach out. It's not embarrassing. I know there's this huge stigma around mental health, but there shouldn't be, because just about everybody I know struggles to some degree with mental health issues, anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, whatever it may be. You're definitely not alone. I struggle. I have horrible anxiety. You can reach out to a trusted family member or a friend or your church or your school. If you have no one to reach out to, you can reach out to me. And that is not a joke. I've talked to many people who I've, maybe barely even known, and tried to help them and guide them in any way that I can. Another great resource is the National Suicide Lifeline. They have mental health professionals available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And their phone number is 1-800-273-8255. They also have a texting feature, which I don't have that information handy, but I'd be happy to get it for anybody that needs it. Another resource is an emergency room in the United States cannot turn people away, regardless if you have insurance or if you don't have money to pay for it right away. They cannot turn you away. So that is another really good resource, somewhere you can go for help. And I have a lot of friends that are mental health professionals, so if you ever reach out to me, I'm sure we can guide you to the right place. And it's not just if someone's suicidal either. If you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling just like anything negatively, you can reach out, and I'm here. And I will leave you with this. There's a statistic that 100% of people who have attempted suicide and failed are glad that it wasn't successful. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. Suicide is not the answer. It's a permanent answer to a temporary problem. I know that things can seem really dark. I've dealt with depression a little bit myself. I definitely struggle with really bad anxiety. And it's not the answer. Like, the world needs you. You're here for a reason, and we need you. So please reach out if you've made it this far. Thank you for listening. Thinking maybe I'll make some more things. I'll either write them or maybe make some more videos just talking about Steven and keeping his legacy alive. And maybe we can talk about mental health. I can get some of my mental health professional friends. And yeah, that sounds kind of like a fun thing to do. So thank you for watching, and thank you for helping me to remember Steven on this day.